I'm here to tell you that we've got some internet problems at our production studio in California. The provider has gone down, not our studio. But I am still pleased to welcome the one and only Ben Domenech, editor at large at the Spectator, Fox News contributor extraordinaire, my weekly news and review guy. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Hugh. It's been a busy week in Washington, to say the least. I was on Capitol Hill, actually, which is a rarity for me, taking some friends around just the other day on Wednesday on a trip from Australia to show them the Capitol building for the first time. And obviously, the day began with, there's a rules battle and they're going to pick a new leader, and then we had this rolling out of Trump picks that was pretty jarring, I would say, in terms of how it escalated quickly. but
you can hear my
interesting
smile.
Week.
I think Doug Burgum at Interior is the equal of Marco Rubio at State, and Michael Waltz at National Security Council, because I know Interior better than any agency that I've dealt with. I'm retired from the practice of law. I don't want a job. I don't have to take care of anyone's feelings. What I thought I would do with you, get a letter grade for every nominee.
Okay, can I just interject something real quick? And you may not realize this, but my father worked at Interior under both George W. Bush and under Donald Trump.
I had remembered that. I knew that, but I'd forgotten it. So know Interior. It's got 70,000 employees. Got Bureau of Indian Affairs, Indian Education, Land Management, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, Bureau of Reclamation, Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, Bureau of Trust Fund. It has the National Park Service, the Office of Surface Mining, the key one, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, my nemesis, and the U.S. Geological Survey. What did your dad do?
So he was the deputy undersecretary and then deputy secretary in charge of the islands and territories out in mostly the Pacific, of course. USVI in addition to that, and but spent a lot of time on issues related to Guam and some of those other areas, and so my Interior is my favorite department as well, and one that I think is just fascinating in terms of the issues that it deals with, and I think Burgum is a phenomenal pick, A+.
A+, and all you need is AI to run the USFWS right out of business. They can decide the critical habitat down. AI can do all that. And I'm not going to get off on my hobby horse. But let's start with we gave Burgum an A+, and I agree. He'll fly through. How about Marco Rubio at State?
Oh, I think he's great. I think he's phenomenal, and I will just say I think it's an A+ move, but it's also I think it's a good move for him career-wise. I think it's something where he's going to have authority in an area where he knows more than I think almost anybody in the country what that department needs in order to function better. And look, Mike Pompeo was a great Secretary of State, but he also had to deal with a ton of things that had to distract him from, I think, the kind of internal reform that place needs. I think Marco will be able to do that and achieve it under this second administration in a way that was really a task that was going to be hard for anybody to go into that job.
The knock-on effect, what very few people know, is that makes Senator Tom Cotton part of the Big Eight as chairman of the Senate Intel. And I just love that. I thought Marco was great at that. Senator Rubio was great at that. But I just love Senator Cotton being part of the game.
I'm glad that he's staying. Yeah, we need him there. Yeah.
All right. Next, Pete Hegseth, defense.
Look, I've known Pete for 13 years, and I think that he's going to be a very good SecDef. I think that the simple fact is that people are talking about this in terms of the experience level or things like that. And what I think that Pete brings is the perspective of someone who's served recently and has a lot of the frustrations that can be channeled into, I think, good leadership. I mean, it's one of these things where you have to make a choice about the kind of person you're going to have in that job. I think he's going to be a very effective communicator, and I think that he needs to be paired with a strong deputy who can really smack some heads around in terms of the inside the building kind of bureaucracy that needs to be done. So, I mean, I'd give it an A. I think it's a B+A move and something that I think is out of, it's out of left field for some people in Washington who are used to the traditional approach. But I think that we were going to always get some roll of the dice picks from Donald Trump. And Pete is clearly going to be somebody, I think, who has a lot of tasks in front of him.
No, I don't know him well. I've interviewed him about his book, The War on Warriors. I've talked to him a few times. I helped him when he briefly ran for Senate. I know he's a Christian man, and I know they're attacking him online from the left as being a Christian nationalist, which is laughable. But you know him well, Ben. What about that?
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely laughable. And the other thing is, I mean, there's just no basis for it at all. By the way, this is one of those things where you'll see threads about Pete where people are making claims about him, and then you look at the interview or you read the thing that he actually said, and it's eminently reasonable and justified. And it's one of these things that is just they have to lie about him, I think, because they don't have anything that is really going to be a real sort of flight against him in terms of this role. They view him as somebody that is not coming up through the traditional kind of defense consultancy kind of approach to things. But I think he's going to be very good at what Donald Trump wants him to do.
And I think he solves the recruitment crisis in about a week. How about Michael Waltz? No, full disclosure, my son worked for Mike Waltz. How about Michael Waltz at NSA? I think he's fabulous. A plus. What do you think?
A plus. And I also think this. I think Mike Waltz is exactly the kind of guy we need to deal with the problems that we have that relate to Mexico and the southern border. The fact that we need to change our relationship and that we can no longer trust the Mexican government in any way, shape, or form to do the kind of things that they've done in the past or committed to do in the past. I think Mike Waltz is going to be able to address that holistically from day one. He's going to be the hammer, I think, against that whole aspect of things. And look, when you take a step back from this admin, what do they look like? They look like they're tough on Iran. They look like they're tough on China. They look like they're tough on Mexico. This is something that I think is going to be a dramatic policy change, and he's key to that.
I will note breaking news this morning. Iran's nuclear site at Parshin was hit by Israel in the strike, and I'm glad about that. I just want to bring people up. We are aware of the news. But since we talk about Waltz, he's an inside the building guy at the White House, gets the corner office front left where Kissinger was and our friend O'Brien. Let's talk about Susie Wiles. I do not know Susie Wiles. I do not know Mr. McGinley, who's the White House counsel. Steve Miller's a hardliner on the border, but so am I. I'm a border hawk and a regularization dove. What do you make of the White House picks, including Wiles, McGinley, and Miller? I don't know the other one.
So I do not. I'll share. I also do not know Susie. I've met her and had conversations with her, but just don't know her that well. I do know Stephen, and Stephen and I actually, believe it or not, have overlapped in terms of we have kids who are basically the same age, and so we've overlapped at some various events and that kind of thing over the years. And I knew him a little bit when he was on Capitol Hill, and I've gotten to know him and his wife better over the past couple of years. He's a harder line guy than I am when it comes to the immigration issue, but I will just say this: I think he's been proven right time and again about how bad things are getting. Yes, and he's
very smart.
He's very sharp, and I think that it's very logical to put him in that position because it makes sense, and it again sending the message that this is a top priority for the president. So I mean, in terms of a cabinet and a group of people in the staff on the White House that looks like and reflects the priorities of the president, it's really. I mean, I think he's done a very good job of it, as you might suspect.
Well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to it.
Let me stay on the national security.
I'll just say this: if I were a member of the United States Senate, I would happily vote for all but one member of the
and we'll get to that.
Cabinet.
Let's go to Ratcliffe at CIA. So, yeah. I think this matters so much. I know the director. He was director of national intelligence a little bit. Spent a couple of days with him last year, and I'll tell you one. He's the smoothest swing I've ever seen of a non-professional golfer. Number two, he is whip smart, former U.S. attorney, and I think a brilliant guy. What do you think?
I think he's phenomenal. I think that he's just the kind of person we need at a moment like this. And given the level and degree of the challenges that we face around the world today, you have to have someone who is that serious and that smart in that job. And I think he's going to do a great one.
And quickly before the break, Elise Stefanik, cabinet member, UN. I am over the moon about this. What do you think?
The only thing I'll say about it, and I say this, damn brimming with praise is, I'm going to miss her on Capitol Hill. It's something sort of thing where it's just like, oh, well, it's a great choice, but it's just like I felt like she could be, potentially someone who in the future is speaker. Maybe she will be, in that role or on that path again, after her tenure there. But I think she'll be a great advocate for the United States.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with Ben. So let's start with the incomplete. I don't know anything about Kristi Noem. I don't know anything about Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know anything about RFK. I trust the Senate to do their job. Do you have any opinions on those three?
So let me run through them real quick. I think Kristi Noem is a talented person. The only question I have is whether she's in the right job, because it's one of these things where, the DHS job has a lot of tasks that are going to be pretty hard. But I do think that one of the things that the president wanted to do was have a dramatic shift away from Alejandro Mayorkas, since certainly you get that with Kristi Noem. I've known Tulsi for years. She's a close personal friend, and to be honest, Hugh, I don't know if you know this or not, she's actually godmother to our daughter.
I did not. I really don't have an opinion because I don't know anything.
Well, I'll just say this. My wife, when she did not know her, was somewhat skeptical about her, and then got to know her, and they're now very close friends. And it's one of these things where, I will just simply say this: she's an American patriot, and whatever you hear about her, she's said some things over the years that I think have been depicted as being more isolationist or peacenik or what have you than perhaps people are comfortable with. But I think that in that job, I think it's very good, and I think it keeps her close to the White House and to the president. And I think that she'll be good in that role. Frankly, I'm glad that she ended up in something like that. And
RFK.
when it comes to RFK, I don't like this positioning. I really would have liked to see RFK. Actually, to be honest, I was kind of hoping he would end up at EPA or something along those lines. I think his environmental policy is not as inconsistent with some of the different strains of science that he's gone after. I have heard Peter Thiel's case for him, which, if you haven't heard it, I think is worth hearing because it's a smart case, and it basically says that we need to open up and question a lot of things that have been accepted in terms of governmental approach to sciences over the years. But that's going to be a very tough task. And HHS is not the job. I mean, I worked for Tommy Thompson at the HHS, and it's not necessarily the job people think it is. It's a lot more about managing systems like Medicaid and that kind of thing. And I'm not sure that RFK is going to enjoy that aspect of it.
And it's up to the Senate. Now, I want to talk about Gates quickly. I do not traffic in rumors. I haven't seen the FBI stuff. I don't know the DOJ stuff. I am Kevin McCarthy's friend of 35 years. So I do not like Matt Gaetz because of what he did to Kevin McCarthy. And I trust the Senate will do its job. I read your stuff. You're not a fan either.
Did that come through?
Yeah.
I apologize if I was unsubtle. No, look, this is the simple truth. Matt Gaetz has no business being the Attorney General of the United States. He just does not. Okay, he can be a member of Congress. People can send him to vote for them and be an avatar for their views. That's fine. But he has no business in that job. And look, I don't know whether he actually violated the law in terms of the letter of the law, in terms of his, transporting a minor and that kind of thing that he was accused of.
Yeah, I don't do any of that because I'm just mad at him for McCarthy and
exactly. Well, and then I'm just reading the same reports you are, and I've read the same coverage of it. And I know that his buddy from that, did go to jail over these, some of these allegations. But what I will say is simply this: I do not believe he is qualified. I do not believe he is a good AG. And I will tell you, Hugh, I know for a fact that there was a very strong effort to get someone else into that job who was having doubts about whether they should accept it or not, all the way up until the point where they had that fight with Matt Gaetz, where he was chosen and named. And that's something that I think is an indication of how much that things came down to the wire with that choice. And I think it's going to be a regrettable choice, and one that ultimately I do not believe will pass muster in the Senate.
I do not believe it will get through the Senate. But I trust the Senate. We're coming back on air. Stand by. Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. I am finishing my rundown of appointees with Ben Domenech, and we've got three left, Ben. Mr. Homan at the Border Czar job. I don't know him, but I like him.
There's a lot to like there, Hugh. I mean, he's tasked obviously with the north of the border stuff mostly, but he understands the border, and I think that in terms of having someone who's worked for both Republicans and Democrats, who's rock solid in terms of experience on the issue, a great advocate for a strong perspective on enforcing the law. I don't think you can do anything better. He is a strong A pick, and again, it's one of these things where this is about sending a message about what the president prioritizes. He's taking all of these picks seriously when it comes to American security, and Tom Homan is key to
that. Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General. I've only interviewed him once. He's a product of the Southern District of New York, where he was a division head. He won in Florida. He's winning in New York. He is tough as nails, and he will actually run the Department of Justice. I bet you they elevate him to be the AG if Matt Gaetz does not get.
I concur. I concur with that assessment. In fact, I was going to say that the simple fact that I think he is likelier to end up as the Attorney General. I think given the way that this is likely to play out. And look, I do not know him personally, but I've seen his interviews and that kind of thing, and he seems to me to be a very tough character. And I think he's, again, the entire DOJ needs to be cleared out. I mean, it needs to be cleaned up, and we can't have the kind of rogue functions that they've had in the past. And I hope that he's the right man for the job. I don't know him well enough to be able to really grade it, but I think that he.
I'm grading it on Andy McCarthy's basis, who gave an A, worked with the Southern District of New York.
Yes, and I trust Andy's judgment generally, and I think that in this case, of course, he knows more than me and knows more about what needs to be done.
Now, veterans matters to me because I've got veterans in my family. You've got veterans in your family. Doug Collins is a very smart guy. I knew him at Judiciary when he was ranking member. Do you know him?
I do. I mean, in the sense that I've interviewed him a couple of times. I think he's very solid, and it's going to be something that I think this is an issue that frankly is underappreciated in terms of the importance of it. There's so many of American veterans across the country who are dealing with challenges that really need to be faced and dealt with seriously. And the fact is that they've had to deal with wait times, deal with delays, deal with the kind of things that they shouldn't have to deal with. And I think that he'll go a long way toward correct.
And then finally, we don't have a Treasury, Commerce, or OMB person yet. I don't care much about Treasury.
Can I put a name out there because I need to say it? Russ Vogt. There is no reason that he should not go back to OMB. He should go back to OMB.
Other than he's got a promise to fund defense, Ben.
Well, let's work on Russ on that. We can have dinner with him and work on him. But just trust me. I think that this is a situation where you need someone in that job who has gone through the experience before. And I know that he.
Yeah, you need someone on that wall. You want someone on that wall along with Ira. And I know Russ. Russ worked for John Campbell, and he's a good guy. He just has to wake up. Defense needs doubling. What about Commerce and Treasury?
Commerce and Treasury. I mean, I'm a little surprised that we haven't had. I mean, there have been names obviously that have been floating out there, for both of those jobs for quite a while. I really don't know why we haven't got somebody yet.
But people are fighting for it. They're fighting for it.
Yeah, they're fighting for it. I think that actually, I think the former and future president enjoys that. It's an aspect of the job he likes to see people clamoring to try to get those jobs. He has numerous good options. I don't particularly have a favored candidate for either one, but I do think that there's a lot of folks who are out there who want it, who are certainly qualified.
And I would overall grade. I'm giving him an A. I know we've got one problem and we've got some question marks, but I'm giving him an A. And I think it's been rapid.
I share that view, and I really do. I think that I think there's literally only one person on this that I would not vote to approve. And I think that this is if you end up with a cabinet where there's only one major problem that is very obvious, and it's one that frankly, I think a lot of United States senators are already talking internally. They've talked to me. I've had, as you might expect, when you write something as vociferously opposed to a nominee as I did yesterday in my newsletter to Transom, the outreach from Capitol Hill is pretty quick, and I think that they're going to take care of that problem.